right, now we're going to take what we know about fractions, what we know about decimals, and kind of put it all together, just to confuse you. All right, here we go. We have order of operations here. Remember, never, ever, ever, ever forget about order of operations. So the first thing we have to see is if we have parentheses, there are no parentheses. Then we look for exponents, there are no exponents. So then we look for multiplication, division, got it. Multiplication, division, from left to right. So we're going to do these two first. Remember, when you divide by 100, you take the decimal and you move it as many places as there are zeros to the left. So I'm going to take this and move it to the left, which gives me 7.513. But now I have to multiply that by 10. Well, remember, when we multiply by a power of 10 that's bigger than 1, we have to move the decimal to the right as many places as there are zeros. So we move this back to the right, and we get 75.13. That was so much fun because we didn't have to do a whole lot of work, just moving back and forth. So if you understand powers of 10, that's a simple problem. Okay? Let's take a look at this problem. In this problem, we have parentheses. We have to do that first. I owe you 4.1. I owe you 3, so I'm going to owe you a ton. But remember that I need to line up my decimals. I don't really need that negative there. I know it's going to be negative because I owe you a lot. So I know my end result is going to be negative. That's a regular 3. It's a whole number. Remember to line it up. That's 7.1, but it's negative 7.1. Okay, I'm going to take that out of the way in a minute because now I have to multiply that. I have a negative times a negative, so you know I'm going to get a positive out of that. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to multiply. Here we go. 4.31 times 7.1. Ready? 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4. Put the 0 down. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Write the 1, carry the 2. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 2 is 30. Now add 1, 10, carry the 1. You get 6, 0, 3. Now remember where the decimal goes in multiplication. You didn't really have to line them up. You just have to count. This is 2 places in. This is 1 place in. So this has got to be 3 places in your answer. So it's positive 30.601 or 30 and 601 thousandths. So that takes care of that. There's 2 more on the paper. There's actually one that looks really hard, number 4. We'll make sure we do that together, but try number 3. All right, let's take a look at this. Let's see how you did. Remember that this exponent works on what's to its immediate left, so we're squaring this whole thing because it works on the parentheses, so this is going to be a positive. Now we're going to have to take 0.08 and square it. Okay, I'm going to do that here. 8 times 8 is 64, carry the 6. 8 times 0 is 0, plus 6 is 6. But remember, there's 2 places here, 2 places here. I don't have to worry about all this 0 stuff going on. I just know I need 4 places. So I have to add 2 zeros. So it's 0.0064 or 64 10,000ths. So I know this is 0.0064 minus 4.33. So I owe you 64 10,000ths, and I have 64 10,000ths, fine. I owe you this much, 4.33, which is bigger. So I know I'm going to owe you in the end, and I'm going to have to subtract. Because I'm subtracting, the bigger number goes first. So I have 4.33 minus 0.0064. 0.0064. I'm going to need some placeholders. Remember that my answer is going to turn out to be negative because I owe you more than I have. Here we go. We're going to have to borrow. So I can't take 4 away from 0. So I'm going to have to borrow 1. That's 6. 9 minus 6 is 3. 2 minus 0 is 2. 3 minus 0 is 3. And 4 minus 0 is 4. So it's 4.3236 or 4 and 3,236 10,000ths. That's like a mouthful. Okay. So that's 3. Let's do 4. Check out order of operations. Just to make sure you understand this, and I think we've been doing this anyway, but I just want to make this clear. When you have a fraction, that line is already a grouping symbol. I have to do everything on top, do anything I need to do on the bottom, and then finally divide. Okay, or simplify. Looking on top, there is no parentheses. Remember, that's not considered parentheses because there's nothing to do inside. So I'm going to erase this. I'm going to come over here and do some work. I'm going to take 1.2 and I'm going to square it. That's really kind of easy because really that's just 12 times 12, right? Here we go. It's 1.2 times 1.2. And we know 12 times 12 is 144. But it's one place in here, one place in here, so it's got to be two places in my answer. So it's 1.44. So this is what I have now. I have 20.06 minus 1.44 divided by 10, divided by 0.02. Think about what must go next. Order of operations. Okay, there are no parentheses. There are no exponents. I look for multiplication and division. I have division, so I have to do division next. Okay, so I'm going to do the top. Let me do the top over here. 20.06 minus 1.44 divided by 10. So I have to do the division first, so let's do that. Negative 1.44 divided by 10. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. Be sign conscious. If I divide by a power of 10 bigger than 1, I move the decimal to the left as many places as there are zeros. So there's 1 0, so I move it once. So it's 0.144. All right. Now I'm just pure subtracting. This number is way bigger than this number. My answer is positive. I just subtract. Let's line up my decimal. Ready? Kind of tedious, but pretty cool because it's not so bad. Here we go. We're going to borrow. 10 minus 4 is 6. 5 minus 4 is 1. Have to borrow again. Okay. Remember, we'll make that 19. 10 minus 1 is 9. Bring down the decimal. There it is. And that's 19. So it's 19.916 or 19 and 916 thousandths. So I have 19.916 divided by 0.02. So let's do the division. Oh, dirty monkeys. I'm thinking I'm going to do short division here. You can do long division. I'm thinking I'm going to do short. Let's see why. It's 19.916 divided by 0.02. This is going to go really quick. I'll show you why. Okay, so 0.02 is on the outside. 19.916. Okay, here's the deal. I have to get this to be an integer, so I'm going to move it 2 places to the right, the decimal, to get it to the end. Whatever I do there, I have to do here because actually what I'm doing is making equivalent fractions, if you recall. So here's what I'm really dividing. 1991.6. I'm really dividing 1,991.6 by 2. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to bring the decimal up. This is going to be beautiful. Watch, I'm going to do a little short division. 2 into 19 goes 9 times. That's 18, remainder 1. 9 times, that's 18, remainder 1. 5 times, that's 10, so that's remainder 1. 2 into 16 goes 8 times. 995.8. So 995 and 8 tenths. Beautiful. All right, a lot of decimals going on. That's the whole point of this section, to get you working with decimals. So we're adding, we're subtracting, we're dividing, we're doing powers of 10. Oh my gosh. Here we go. Let's do area. Now, I know we did area in Mod 1. I remember doing this because I remember making a really bad rectangle. All right, let's take a look at these problems. I want to find the area. If you remember, to find the area of a rectangle, we did this already. It's length times width. Okay, we haven't done the triangle yet, but we have done the rectangle. So it's length times width. Now, this is absolutely up to you. My suggestion is either make them both fractions or both decimals. We can go either way you want to go here. Okay? If you'd like, we can change that to 26 hundredths, or we could change this to a decimal, which I believe we've already done in this lesson. Okay? 2/5, I'm going to change them all to decimals. 2/5 is 0.4. So here's how this looks. And again, remember how to do that. I take 2, divide it by 5. I know we did this. Here it is right there, 0.4. Okay? And 0.26 here. And now we multiply. So I'll do that. 0.26 times 0.4. Okay, remember, we don't have to line them up. There's 2 places here, 1 place here, so 3 places in our answer. Here we go. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. 3 places in our answer, it's 0.104. So this is 0.104, and this is in square yards. Square yards. Remember we said area was in square feet, square yards, square whatever. Okay? All right. That brings us to this problem. We have not done a triangle yet, not area. We've done perimeter, but not area. If you think of area as a triangle as really being half of this, if you cut this in half, you get a triangle. This is really, area is 1/2 length times width. Nobody says that, but everybody says 1/2 base times height. Let's talk about that. When you go to a doctor and they say, let's measure how tall you are, you'd never stand like this. You'd stand like this. In fact, I try to jump up and hopefully they'll catch me on the way up. But at any rate, you stand like this. And what they call, you stand straight up, and you are actually what they call perpendicular to the ground. What does that mean? That means you make a right angle. This is called, that little box stands for a right angle, a 90-degree angle, like an L shape. That's a 90-degree angle with the ground. That makes you stand as tall as you possibly can. So this is the height. The height is always drawn to the base. So wherever the height falls on here, that's the base. So this is the base. This is an unnecessary piece of information. There to make you crazy. So you do not need this number. We just need the base. We just need the height. Now here's something I just want to tell you, talk to you about. Here, it didn't matter if you changed them to decimals or fractions. Really didn't matter. In fact, even if you wanted to keep one a decimal, one a fraction, you really could have. It doesn't really matter. But here, you do not want to change this to a decimal, and I'll tell you why. If you remember 1/3, 1/3 was 0.33333 ... That means 2/3 is 2 of those. So it's 0.6666 ... So it's not an exact number. So I'm going to keep this as a fraction. But if I keep that as a fraction, remember what we have to do. Watch. Now this is up to you. I can change this to a fraction, or I can actually do this. I'm going to show you because I think people make too much of a big deal with this. Look, you can change them to all one. You really don't have to. Here's why. Watch. The base is 5.7. If that's a fraction, just write it like this. I know technically that's not definition a fraction because that's got to be an integer, but look, it doesn't matter. Watch. Watch what I mean. And the height is 6 2/3. But remember, I can't multiply unless that looks like a fraction also. So that's 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20/3. Now, a lot of people won't do this, but watch. This is really very simple. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do 1 times 5.7, which is 5.7, times 20. That's very simple. 20 times 5.7. Okay, so this is 0 places. This is 1 place. Here we go. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 2 is 14. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. And we have 1 place in our answer. So that's 114. So this is actually 114 over 2 times 3 is 6. Look, I did not even have to change that to a fraction if I didn't want to. It works. Don't worry about it. Don't freak out. Now I have to change this, however. Okay? Now let's see what we want to do. There's a couple of ways to do this. We can divide, or we can first reduce. It doesn't really matter. Don't let this make you crazy, but I'm going to bring it over here because we're getting way too low on the board here. A equals 114 over 6. Now, you can actually divide here, we said, or you can reduce. You might want to reduce it. I'll make it a little smaller, the numbers. 114 divided by 2 is, whoops, I don't know what that is. Certainly doesn't look like an equal. 57 over 3. Now, I don't know how they want the answer. They didn't say. So maybe that's okay. 57 over 3 inches squared. Maybe they want it as a mixed number. Maybe they want it as a decimal. They didn't say. But you could either put it as a fraction. You could put it as a mixed number. You could put it as a decimal. They didn't say. So you're okay. All right. Actually, you know what? That goes in nice. I'm just thinking, stop. I'm just realizing something. Hold on, guys. This goes in nicely because 7 plus 5 is 12. So this actually is divisible by 3. Let's take a look. I didn't notice that right away. 3 goes into 5 once with 2 left over. 3 goes into 27, 19. What am I thinking? So area is 19 square inches. Oh, by the way, that's another way to write square inches. I did it without thinking or talking to you about it. Inches squared and squared inches, exactly the same thing. But notice that the only thing being squared is the inches. So square inches or inches squared, exactly the same thing. You absolutely need to know that anyway. So I'm glad I did that by accident. So that's the answer to the triangle problem. Had I realized that one in right away there, I could have did it, but it doesn't matter. I can reduce, I can do whatever I want. This triangle is called a right triangle because it's got a right angle. There are really three different kinds of triangles, and I don't really want to go into all of it and how to solve it. I just want you to be aware of it. You don't have to be aware of the names, but there's triangles that look like this, which is called right. It's okay if you didn't know it was right, but it's called a right triangle. And the height stands directly up, straight up and down. And the height is one of the sides of the triangles. Then there's another triangle that you've seen already, like 2 or 3 times already, where we're finding the perimeter. That triangle is here. Okay, so this is the height here. This is the base. Okay. Here, remember we talk about height. Height's got to be straight up and down on the perpendicular. Well, that little square tells me that's where your right angle is, and that's what on the perpendicular means. So here the height is this line. That line is the height. That's how tall the triangle is, because the triangle goes from here to here. So the height is actually inside the triangle there. So that's the height, and that's the base. And then there's one other type. There's this dude. This dude is when the height is actually drawn outside the triangle. Okay? So the height is really the length from here to here. That's the height, and this is the base. Be careful. That dotted line is dotted for a reason. That's not part of the base. This is the base from here to here. That's the length of the base. Okay? So know there are 3 kinds of triangles, and you'll see it, so I don't want you to go, oh my gosh, why does that look different? There are 3 types. Base is part of the triangle. I'm sorry, height is a side of the triangle. Height is inside the triangle. Height is drawn outside the triangle. So there are 3 different kinds, and you'll see them in some of the examples we do later. Okay, so that's the end of applications of fractions and decimals. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to solve decimal equations, and you have choices there.